to The Hypnotist, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here. Now, everyone, every now and then, accesses a state of procrastination. And the interesting thing is that sometimes the more important the thing is that needs to be done, the more overthinking takes place before it. And this can be very frustrating. I remember for years I considered a podcast before I actually launched the podcast. And even being a hypnotherapist, I delayed that for years and years before I actually did that. And the important things sometimes get delayed. And that's really what this session is all about. I want you to think of an area in your life that you know you've been putting it off for a while. And the reason for that is that we're going to work particularly on that area. Now, I was working with a client that was very familiar with certain botanicals, certain essences of kind of flowers and trees and things like that. And she introduced to me a particular state called the Hornbeam state. And it was based on a European doctor's work called Dr. Bach. And I looked into it. And this state called the Hornbeam state is that kind of Monday morning state, or that state while you know you've got to do the thing, but you kind of put it off. It's not quite procrastination. It's more procrastination is the consequence of this feeling. And the feeling is not quite now. I'm not ready yet. That's the Hornbeam state. Now, the Hornbeam state has got a function. Typically, when people are in this state, they do a lot of analysis and research and preparation. They do everything but the thing. They learn more about it. They think about all the risks and the consequences. They just don't pull the trigger. They don't actually execute their plan. So this session is all about harnessing that state to go beyond it, because actually the state itself is useful so long as it's a launch pad into doing the actual thing. If you remain stuck in that, that could be a tragedy, because you never actually quite get to do that thing and you're left wondering. It's also quite a heavy state after a while, because all of these what ifs, all of this analysis paralysis keeps you stuck. So breaking from that is quite powerful. So it uses a forest metaphor, this idea of the hornbeam tree, and the hornbeam is a tree, a very hardy tree. And it takes the essence of what would it be to break that, and it ends with two different timelines. The timeline where you never break the state and forever you just never actually do that thing. And it could be a dream, it could be an ambition, it could be a risk, but you never do it. And then the second pathway that leads from the clearing in the forest is to actually do the thing. And doing the thing is challenging, but it's challenging particularly if you never start the thing, or if you get easily dissuaded. You start and then you stop, you start and you stop. Actually doing and sticking to the thing turns inertia to momentum, and it's the momentum that actually is a very liberating experience, because when you do the thing, you get wiser, you get experiences, you get the feedback loop, you get the dopamine that comes from making progress. There's a lot that comes from the other side of doing that thing. So I would encourage you to think of, what is that thing that you know you want? You know that you've got probably more knowledge than most people. You've just been hesitating. You're stuck in the bit before takeoff. What is that? And then listen to this session. You'll get more from it. Now, it was a business that the client I was working with was hesitating from. Some of the suggestions would have been perfect for them and not quite right for you. But I've actually created a webinar of what working with me is like. So if you like the idea of working with me to have something bespoke, check the description of this episode. You'll see a way to register for the webinar, and then you'll learn a lot more about what actually working with me one-to-one is like. And actually there's some bonus things. You get 10 hypnosis sessions at the end of that webinar recording as well, just by staying to the end. So if that's of interest, check that out. It explains it all on the registration page. For now, though, you might get some real value from this session. So find a quiet, comfortable place where you won't be distracted or disturbed. Relax and enjoy the session. Take a deep breath in, and as you breathe in, breathe in that resourceful feeling of calm and relaxation, and as you exhale, feel that wonderful feeling of release. As if any tension, any stress, any worries is melting away and leaving your body in your outward breath. That's it. Breathing in relaxation, exhaling tension. And the deeper you breathe, the more relaxed you feel. And the more relaxed you feel, the deeper you naturally breathe. And just slowing down the breath activates that dreamlike state within the imagination. And you've been in that place many times. When you've been reading a book and suddenly you drift off into that world within your imagination, experiencing it as if it's real, but knowing your physical body is where it is, and it's your imagination that's going on that journey. And I want you to imagine a bookshelf, maybe your bookshelf, or maybe someone else's. But just imagine seeing a book about nature. And just imagine flicking through the pages until you discover a picture of a forest. Not just any forest, the kind of forest that it's easy to imagine walking within that forest. And maybe you could imagine a forest on a sunny day under blue skies. Maybe it's just after sunrise or just before sunset. But I want you to allow yourself to imagine walking into that forest. And I want you to imagine how the light comes through the canopy in a particular way, filtering through leaves, touching the ground in patches of warmth. The world around you awake and yet unhurried. And I wonder if you can notice the ground beneath your feet. The feeling of solid ground on the forest floor. The way the path is clear ahead of you, even if you can only see a little bit of it at a time. And sometimes in nature you can feel a connection. Feel connected to the forest, knowing that the path doesn't need to be fully visible to be fully real. And as you walk, your breathing deepens naturally, your body finding its rhythm, and something begins to settle that was perhaps a little tight before you arrived in this place, in this forest. The particular quality of a mind that has been given permission to simply be present rather than busy. Each step into the forest takes you deeper into your imagination until you arrive at a clearing. And I wonder if you could imagine, right in the center of that clearing stands a magnificent hornbeam tree. Just stand before it for a moment and simply look and appreciate. The hornbeam is not the tallest tree in the forest, and it's not the most dramatic. But there's something about its quality, its presence, that draws your attention and holds it. Something settled and purposeful and strong. Maybe you could imagine placing a hand on its bark, feeling the texture of something that has been growing patiently for a long time. Something that has put its energy not into performance, but into substance. Not into appearing strong, but into becoming strong. Quietly, year by year, ring by ring. And this tree knows nothing about the weight of not yet started. It has no concept of that feeling like on a Monday morning, that hesitancy, that reluctance. It simply grows, puts out another leaf, another branch, another ring of itself into the world. Not because it has resolved to do so, or suddenly found the motivation or waited for the right conditions, but because growing is simply what it does when it's alive. And your unconscious can notice something, perhaps profound, insightful, important, or maybe just useful, as you stand beside that tree. That the heaviness that sometimes gathers around the thought of beginning, the particular weariness that can arrive before a task is touched and disappear so reliably the moment a task is started, that heaviness has nothing to do with your capability. It's just the essence of inertia, the gap between stillness and motion. And the tree has never been confused about which side of the gap it wants to live on. And I wonder if you can allow your imagination to travel with the tree through all winter and into the moment of spring. The Hornbeam has been holding everything through the cold months. All that potential, all that capability, completely still. Not because anything is wrong, but simply because the season has not yet called for it. And then, as if by magic, something shifts. The light changes by a fraction. The temperature changes by a degree. And something in the tree responds to that smallest of signals, not with careful deliberation, not with planning or analysis, or a full assessment of whether the conditions are optimal, but with a single, committed unfurling. One leaf. Not a whole canopy, just one leaf, pushing through into the air it hasn't touched before. And the remarkable thing is what that single leaf makes possible. Because once one leaf is open, the tree knows something it did not know the moment before. It knows that it can do this. And the second leaf comes more easily. And the third more easily still. And before long, the whole magnificent canopy is green and alive, doing the work it was biologically engineered to do. The first leaf is never the hardest one for the tree. It's simply the first one. The one that opens the door for everything that follows. And the Hornbeam does not wait until it is certain the season will cooperate. It offers its first leaf, creating that natural chain reaction in harmony with the seasons. And what if all of this thinking and planning and preparation was your winter? Not wasted time, but preparing time. The time before the action is time well spent, like sharpening the saw before attempting to use the saw. But all of that preparation only makes a difference and matters if action is finally taken. And I want you to search within to find that part, the part that now wants to do, to decide, without needing to know everything, the willingness to start and learn as you go, and just bring that part forward. And that part has experienced time and time again the feeling you get when you start something and then return to it, and each time it gets easier and easier. It's almost like your body, your hands, your mind knows what to do. And isn't it fascinating how more often than not, doing it is actually easier than not doing it? That strange relief of discovering that the thing was never as heavy as the thought of the thing. And the energy that arrives, not before the work, but inside it. I want you to get a sense that rather than resisting the hornbeam, what if we harness the hornbeam? What if on the other side of that dread, hesitation, or preparation is that relief, that momentum? Maybe that's what the hornbeam positive state feels like. Not the forced brightness of trying to feel motivated, and not the grim determination of willpower, but the natural, easy, almost effortless quality of a person who has crossed the threshold and just found the work waiting there, manageable and real, exactly as capable. And I wonder if you can call the bluff of all of those doubts. Because when you do the thing, you realize most of those doubts and what ifs were not real anyway. Your unconscious can install this now as something that lives in the body rather than only in the mind. That knowledge below thought, that the other side of beginning is always better than the thought of beginning. That the first action unlocks a state your whole system moves into naturally once the threshold is crossed. Maybe you can recall a memory of a hesitant child on the edge of a cold swimming pool, perhaps the ocean. They think how cold it will be, so they hesitate, and the more they hesitate, the more they delay. And yet they see friends splashing around in the water. Those first few seconds may be uncomfortable, maybe even a shock. But when you're through the other side, doesn't it feel like fun? And what if there's something else the forest has to offer? This clearing is not only a place to stand and observe. What if it's a place to work? And I want you to imagine you've come to the clearing with something to build. A vision that has been patient in the planning. Ideas that are ready to become real. A contribution that is waiting for the hands that can make it. And this forest, this hornbeam, this clearing is simply telling you what you already know at the deepest level. The people who need what you are building cannot find it in the drawing. They can't find it in the concept. They can only find it in the built thing. And the built thing begins with a single action, offered with the same quiet commitment with which a tree offers its first spring leaf. Not perfectly, not with guarantees, just genuinely and now. And what you discover as you begin is that the capability was never in doubt. It was always there, patient in the winter and ready in the spring, waiting not for conditions to be perfect, but waiting for you to decide that now is when the building starts. And I want you to think of what that means for you in your environment, not in the clearing, but in your environment. A decision, an action, time connected to doing the thing, knowing that in the same way that you can follow a trail in the forest and not know the full trail, you can take the first action, trusting that you will be able to learn all those things you don't fully understand yet. You learn by doing, failing, analyzing, reflecting, learning some more, and then going forward. You can't know every twist and turn before you start. So allow that part that has confidence in your ability to ask, to learn, to delegate, to fail and reflect and come back stronger. And when that part is awakened and you're clear what starting looks like, then imagine seeing that version of you taking that action. And notice it looks more effortless, with less resistance than that time before you started. When you cross the line, you harness the Hornbeam. But if you never cross the line, the Hornbeam was holding you back. Allow your unconscious to ask the question: do you want to be held back? Or do you want to take action again and again, allowing yourself to move forward? I want you to get a sense of the time will pass anyway. Imagine two versions of you. A version of you always waiting for the perfect moment, continuing to analyze, plan and prepare. Every season is winter. And the other version of you launches, starts, is willing to fall down and pick yourself up again Allow your unconscious to reveal just how different those two versions of you 10 years from now are. Which one has accomplished more, impacted more lives? Which one has learned more, understood more? And which one seems happier? These are two different trails in the forest. Only you can decide which one. So imagine you're back in the clearing and seeing two different trails. The trail of hesitancy, stuck in the moonbeam, and the second trail that harnesses the Hornbeam's power to move beyond hesitancy and forward into action and then momentum. When you're ready to take that trail, that path, let me know by nodding your head. And now it's time to return. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose. And wiggle your fingers and wiggle your toes, connecting and calibrating into the here and the now. As I now count from 1 to 10 to awaken you. Starting to count 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of The Hypnotist. If you've enjoyed this episode or got some value from it, please give it a 5-star rating and review. And maybe you know someone that would also benefit from this particular episode, in which case share the episode with them so they can also get the benefit too. And if you would like to listen to this episode where it's just the hypnosis, so no intro, no outro, no explanation, just the hypnosis and completely ad-free, there will be a link in the description where you can subscribe at a very low cost and only get access to the hypnosis. So if that's of interest, please check that out. Thank you again for being a regular listener of The Hypnotist, and I'll see you again soon for more.